The sun was barely rising over the bustling city of Nairobi when Lydia woke up to another day of quiet worry. She lived in a neat little apartment with her husband Patrick, a man whose smile could charm anyone, but whose heart had begun to change ever since money entered the picture. Lydia was a humble woman. She worked as a schoolteacher, loved children, and believed in honesty. Patrick, on the other hand, was ambitious, maybe too ambitious. He once said to her, "My love, money is power. Without it, even your good heart will be ignored." At first she laughed it off, but over the years those words grew heavier. One morning Lydia received a letter from her late grandmother's lawyer. It was written on fancy paper, sealed with red wax. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Dear Mrs. Lydia Kamau, you have been chosen as the sole heir to your grandmother's inheritance, a property, savings, and a chest containing items of great personal value. Please come to Nanyuki to collect what is rightfully yours." Lydia's eyes widened. Her grandmother, Mama Nyokabi, had always told her, "What is meant for you will find you, even through death." She was excited, not for the money, but for the memories. Mama Nyokabi had raised her when her parents died, but when Lydia shared the news with Patrick, his reaction was not what she expected. "Wait, your grandmother left you what?" he asked sharply, eyes glinting. "She left me her property and some savings," Lydia said softly. Patrick smiled, too quickly. "That's amazing, babe. Finally we can start that business we talked about." Lydia hesitated. "Patrick, I want to use part of it to help the orphanage Mama Nyokabi loved. She always said—" "Lydia, please," Patrick interrupted. "You're too soft. This is our chance to move up in life. I can invest that money, double it, triple it. Trust me." Something about his tone chilled her, but she nodded, too kind to argue. A week later, they traveled to Nanyuki to meet the lawyer. The old man handed Lydia a set of documents, a land title, and a small, ancient-looking wooden chest tied with red cloth. "This chest," he said gravely, "was sealed by your grandmother herself. She left specific instructions. Do not open it until the time feels right." Patrick chuckled. "Old people and their secrets," he muttered. But the lawyer's expression stayed serious. "Mr. Kamau," he said, "with all respect, Mama Nyokabi was not just an old woman. She believed deeply in her family's ancestral protection. She once told me, anyone who touches her treasures with greed in their heart will pay a heavy price." Patrick laughed again. "Sir, curses don't exist. Only poverty does." Lydia felt uneasy. As they drove back to Nairobi, she held the chest close to her chest, whispering a silent prayer to her grandmother's spirit. That night, Patrick couldn't sleep. He kept pacing the living room, his mind racing. How much could be inside that chest? He pictured stacks of cash, gold, maybe even jewels. Meanwhile, Lydia was sound asleep, exhausted from the trip. By midnight, temptation won. He tiptoed into the bedroom, saw the chest beside Lydia's side of the bed, and carefully lifted it. The red cloth felt rough in his hands. He hesitated for a second, but greed whispered louder than caution. "Just one look," he told himself. He untied the cloth and opened the chest. Inside there were three things: a bag of old coins, a letter, and a black stone that glowed faintly in the dim light. Patrick frowned. "That's it? Where's the money?" He grabbed the letter angrily and began to read. "To my beloved Lydia, if this chest is opened by hands driven by greed, may the spirit of the ancestors guard what is rightfully yours. The fortune will turn against the thief until truth returns to light." Patrick laughed bitterly. "Superstition, what nonsense!" He pocketed the coins and the black stone, thinking he'd sell them later. But as soon as he did, the lights flickered. A cold breeze swept through the room, even though all the windows were closed. "Hello?" he called out nervously. The TV turned on by itself, showing static. Then, just for a second, he saw a blurry reflection, an old woman's face staring back at him from the screen. He dropped the stone and stepped back, heart pounding. But when Lydia woke up, the chest was gone. So were Patrick's explanations. The next morning, Patrick acted cheerful. He claimed he'd moved the chest for safekeeping. Lydia, trusting as always, believed him. But deep inside, the curse had already begun. At first, everything seemed fine. Patrick began spending more time away from home, saying he was meeting investors. Lydia noticed he was dressing better, carrying a new phone, and even driving a borrowed car. When she asked where the money came from, he smiled. "Don't worry, my love. I'm just making smart moves with what your grandmother left us." But the truth was darker. Patrick had taken the old coins to an antique dealer downtown. The dealer, an old Somali man named Yusuf, examined them carefully and looked uneasy. "Where did you get these?" he asked. "They belong to my late grandmother-in-law," Patrick lied confidently. "I just want to sell them." Yusuf's expression hardened. "These coins are from the Kikuyu royal lineage, sacred tokens. You shouldn't sell them." Patrick smirked. "Everything has a price." Reluctantly, Yusuf offered him a large sum, more than Patrick had ever seen in his life. As soon as Patrick touched the money, Yusuf's cat hissed loudly, and the lights in the shop flickered. Yusuf crossed himself and muttered something under his breath. Patrick laughed it off again, but as he walked out of the shop, he stumbled. His car keys slipped from his hand, and as he bent to pick them up, a speeding motorcycle brushed past, nearly hitting him. He froze. "That was close," he whispered. That night, strange things began happening at home. Lydia heard whispers when she prayed. The black stone Patrick had taken started appearing in random places. On the kitchen counter, the bathroom sink, even under his pillow. Patrick tried throwing it away twice, but each morning it reappeared. He began losing sleep, sweating, and hearing his grandmother-in-law's voice in his dreams. Greed blinds a man until he sees his own destruction. Still, he refused to confess. Within weeks, the money began slipping through his fingers. His new business deals failed. One investor disappeared with his funds. His car got repossessed. Then he fell sick, not physically, but mentally. Paranoia gripped him. He accused Lydia of spying on him. "Don't act innocent," he yelled one night. "You think I don't know you're talking to her spirit?" "Whose spirit?" Lydia cried. "Your grandmother's," he shouted. "She's everywhere, watching me." Lydia backed away, frightened. "Patrick, you need help." But deep down, the old man Yusuf's warning echoed in Patrick's head. Sacred tokens. Don't sell them. He couldn't admit it now. Pride wouldn't let him. Meanwhile, Lydia noticed her life turning upside down. The school she worked at was suddenly shut down due to financial irregularities. Her close friend got into an accident. Even her plants at home began withering. Something wasn't right. That same week, she found a piece of red cloth, the same one that had wrapped the chest, torn and buried under their bed. Her heart sank. She realized Patrick had lied, and the curse had only just begun. The morning after Lydia found the torn red cloth, the house felt heavier than ever. The air was thick, like something unseen was watching her. Patrick had already left early, saying he had urgent meetings. But lately, his meetings had become excuses. He would disappear for hours, come home smelling of alcohol, and mutter strange things in his sleep. That morning, Lydia decided to clean the bedroom, something she hadn't done thoroughly since they returned from Nanyuki. As she moved the bed to sweep underneath, her broom hit something hard. She knelt and pulled out a small black stone, glowing faintly, the same one Patrick had taken from her grandmother's chest. Her hands trembled. She whispered, "Oh, Mama Nyokabi, what have you done to us?" Suddenly the stone rolled out of her hand by itself and stopped at her feet. For a second, she heard her grandmother's voice, soft but firm, echo through her mind. "Truth brings peace. Lies bring ruin." Lydia gasped, clutching her chest. She knew now, whatever curse Patrick had awakened, it was spreading fast. Meanwhile, Patrick's life was spiraling out of control. He had invested almost all the money from the antique sale into a shady online trading scheme. At first, the numbers on his screen went up, and his confidence returned. But one morning when he logged in, the account was empty, gone. Every shilling vanished. He slammed his laptop shut, cursing under his breath. His phone rang. Unknown number. He picked up angrily. "Hello?" A deep voice spoke, calm but chilling. "You sold what was not yours." Patrick froze. "Who is this?" "Return it, or the spirits will take what you love most." The call cut off. He threw the phone onto the couch, shaking. But the words echoed like thunder in his mind. Take what you love most. That evening, Lydia was waiting for him. "Patrick," she said softly, "we need to talk." He avoided her eyes. "Not now, Lydia, I'm tired." "Patrick, please. I found the red cloth and the stone." His head snapped up. "You what?" "Please tell me the truth," she begged. "Did you open the chest?" Patrick's jaw tightened. "Lydia, don't start with your superstitions. I took what was ours. Your grandmother left it to you, which means it's ours." "She left it to me," Lydia said quietly. "And she told me to wait." "You didn't wait, Patrick. You took what wasn't meant for you yet," he scoffed. "You think some ghost is angry because I opened an old box." The lights flickered. Both of them froze. The room grew cold. The black stone began glowing brighter, this time with a pulse like a heartbeat. Then a picture frame fell from the wall and shattered. Inside, it was a photo of Mama Nyokabi smiling between Lydia and Patrick at their wedding. Lydia screamed. Patrick stumbled backward, his face pale. The lights went out completely. In the darkness, they both heard a whisper, low, ancient, and filled with sorrow. "Greed steals the heart before it steals the gold." Patrick grabbed Lydia's hand, trembling. Did you hear that?" "Yes," she whispered. "And it's your doing." That night, Lydia couldn't sleep. She sat in the living room praying. When she opened her Bible, a folded letter slipped out, one she had never seen before. The handwriting was her grandmother's. "My dearest Lydia, the one who steals what is not his will carry its burden. The black stone guards the bloodline's truth. If it finds its way back to its keeper, peace will return. But if it remains in the hands of the greedy, sorrow will follow them like a shadow." Lydia wiped tears from her eyes. Her grandmother had seen this coming. She had to act. The next morning, she decided to visit the old lawyer in Nanyuki again, hoping he could explain more about the curse. But when she told Patrick she was leaving, he snapped. "Why are you going there?" he demanded. "I need to understand this inheritance," she said calmly. "No, you're not going anywhere. Patrick, please, I'm trying to save us." "I don't need saving," he shouted. "I just need that money back." His face was red, his eyes wild. For a moment, Lydia didn't recognize the man she had married. He pushed past her and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Outside, the sky was darkening, though it was still morning. A strange wind picked up, howling through the streets. Patrick drove recklessly through traffic, consumed by anger. "I'll fix this myself," he muttered. He headed straight to Yusuf's antique shop. But when he arrived, the shop was gone, replaced by an empty building with a "for rent" sign. He blinked, confused. "What the—" A security guard nearby looked at him oddly. "Sir, that place has been empty for months. No one's been there since last year." Patrick felt his stomach drop. No, I was just here 2 weeks ago." The guard shrugged. "Maybe you saw a ghost, boss." Patrick ran back to his car, sweating. The moment he sat inside, his phone vibrated again. Same unknown number. He didn't want to answer, but something made him press accept. "Hello?" he whispered. This time, a woman's voice answered. "Return what you stole. Patrick Kamau." He froze. "Who are you?" but the voice only said, "Time is running out." Then the line went dead. That night, Lydia had a dream. She was standing in her grandmother's old house in Nanyuki. The floor was covered in dust, but in the center stood the same wooden chest, open now, with a soft golden light coming from it. Her grandmother appeared beside her, smiling sadly. "My child," she said, "the curse was not placed to destroy, only to reveal truth. But the one blinded by greed must learn the cost before peace returns." Lydia asked, trembling, "Can I save him?" Mama Nyokabi touched her shoulder. "If he humbles himself, yes. If not, his soul will pay the debt his heart created." When Lydia woke up, tears streamed down her cheeks. She knew what she had to do. She packed the black stone, wrapped it again in the torn red cloth, and prepared to travel back to Nanyuki. She would return the inheritance to where it belonged. But as she reached for her car keys, she saw Patrick standing at the door, pale, trembling, and soaked in sweat. "Lydia," he whispered, "I think something's following me." His face told her everything. The curse had finally caught him. Patrick stood in the doorway like a ghost of himself, eyes hollow, shirt drenched in sweat, hands trembling. He hadn't shaved in days, and his once proud posture had crumbled into something pitiful. "Lydia," he said in a broken voice, "it won't stop." Lydia slowly put down her bag. "What won't stop, Patrick?" He looked around the room, as if afraid someone was listening. The whispers, the shadows. "Every time I close my eyes, I see her. Your grandmother. She's following me. She's everywhere." Lydia's heart softened even through her anger. "I told you, Patrick. You opened what was sacred." He shook his head, pacing wildly. "No, you don't understand. I tried to fix it. I went back to the man who bought the coins, the antique dealer, but the shop's gone. It's like it never existed." Lydia's breath caught. It never existed. The curse was deeper than she thought. She stepped closer, speaking gently. "Patrick, we need to take the stone and what's left of the inheritance back to Nanyuki. Maybe the lawyer—" Patrick snapped. "No! I'm not going back there! That's where it started!" His voice echoed, followed by the sharp crash of glass. The window beside him shattered inward, though nothing had touched it. A sudden gust of cold air filled the room. Lydia screamed and fell back. Patrick stared in horror as faint, misty handprints appeared on the window pane, glowing faintly before fading away. The black stone on the table began to hum, shaking slightly. Then, a voice filled the room, soft, female, but heavy with power. "You were warned." Patrick fell to his knees, covering his ears. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" he cried. Lydia rushed to him, gripping his shoulders. "You have to confess, Patrick. Tell the truth. Return what you stole." He pushed her away, tears streaming down his face. "I can't. I sold it. It's gone." The lights flickered. The television turned on by itself again, showing static. Then slowly, a face formed on the screen. Lydia gasped. It was her grandmother's face. Mama Nyokabi's eyes were sad, her expression filled with disappointment. "A thief of blood invites the curse of blood," the voice said. "He must lose what he took, or what he loves most." Patrick stared, trembling. "No, no, please." Then the screen went black. Silence. Lydia slowly backed away. "Patrick, we need to go. Now." But Patrick was frozen, breathing heavily, mumbling to himself. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to help us." Lydia turned and ran to the bedroom, grabbed the stone and the red cloth, and wrapped them tightly. "We're going to Nanyuki," she said firmly, "before it's too late." Patrick didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on something behind her. Lydia turned slowly and froze. A shadow stood in the corner of the room, the shape of an old woman barely visible, her eyes glowing softly. Return what was taken, it whispered. Lydia fell to her knees, crying. Mama, please forgive him. The shadow's gaze shifted to Patrick. Forgiveness must be earned. Patrick screamed and ran out of the apartment, slamming the door behind him. Lydia tried to follow, but the door jammed shut, as if invisible hands held it closed. She could hear him outside, his footsteps echoing down the stairs, his voice shouting, "Leave me alone!" Then, silence. Lydia finally forced the door open and rushed out, but Patrick was gone. Only his car keys lay on the stairwell floor. For hours, Lydia searched. She called his phone, went to the police, and even drove to his favorite bar. Nothing. No one had seen him. It wasn't until midnight that she got a call from an unknown number. Her hands shook as she answered. "Hello? Is this Mrs. Kamau?" a man's voice asked. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Officer Mugo from the Central Police Station. I'm afraid there's been an accident." Her heart stopped. "Your husband's vehicle was found near Karura Forest. He's alive but unconscious. We need you to come." Lydia drove like a madwoman through the night, tears streaming down her face. When she reached the hospital, she found Patrick lying in bed, pale, weak, and shaking. His clothes were torn, and he had scratches all over his body. The doctor told her softly, "He's in shock. He keeps saying something about eyes in the dark." Lydia sat beside him, holding his cold hand. "Patrick, can you hear me?" He turned to her slowly, eyes glassy. "They won't let me go, Lydia. They keep whispering." "Who?" He swallowed hard. "The ancestors. Your grandmother. They said the price must be paid." Lydia squeezed his hand. "Then let's pay it the right way. We'll go back to Nanyuki together." He nodded weakly, tears slipping down his cheeks. The next morning, Lydia helped Patrick into the car and began the long drive to Nanyuki. The sky was overcast, and thunder rumbled in the distance. For most of the journey, neither of them spoke. The radio was silent, the road empty. When they reached her grandmother's old compound, the gate creaked open by itself. The house, though abandoned for years, looked freshly swept, as if someone had been expecting them. Patrick shivered. "I don't like this place." Lydia ignored him and walked toward the old tree at the center of the compound. The same tree her grandmother used to sit under when telling stories. She placed the black stone and the red cloth at its roots, then knelt. "Mama Nyokabi," she whispered, "we return what was stolen. Please, let peace return to our family." The wind picked up. Leaves swirled around them. The air grew cold again, but this time it felt different. Calmer. Gentle. Patrick, trembling, fell to his knees beside her. "I'm sorry," he cried. "I was blinded. I thought money could fix everything. Please forgive me." The tree branches moved as if bowing. The black stone began to glow once more, then cracked in half. From inside, a small silver coin rolled out, shining even in the dark. Lydia picked it up, her eyes wide. It was engraved with her grandmother's initials. A voice whispered softly through the wind, "Peace returns when truth is restored." Patrick began sobbing. "Thank you, thank you." For a moment, it seemed as though everything was over. The air felt lighter. The birds began to sing again. Lydia smiled faintly, looking up at the sky. But then Patrick gasped. His face twisted in pain. He clutched his chest, eyes wide with terror. "Patrick!" Lydia screamed, holding him. "What's wrong?" He coughed violently, his breathing ragged. I feel burning inside." And then his eyes rolled back, and his body went still. Lydia screamed his name over and over, shaking him. But he didn't move. The sky above thundered. Rain began to pour, soaking them both. She looked up through tears. "Why? You said peace would return." The wind whispered again, "Peace for the bloodline, not for the thief." Patrick's funeral was quiet. Lydia buried him beside her grandmother's grave, beneath the same old tree. She didn't cry much. She had no tears left. In her heart, she knew the curse had claimed its price. Greed had cost her everything. As she placed a flower on his grave, she whispered, "May your soul find the peace your heart never did." Then, as she turned to leave, a single sunbeam broke through the clouds, lighting the graves with golden warmth. And from somewhere deep within the earth, Lydia swore she heard her grandmother's voice one last time. "The heart that steals can never keep its treasure, but the heart that forgives will always find peace." Months passed after Patrick's burial, yet Lydia's life never truly returned to normal. The apartment they once shared felt empty, full of echoes and memories that refused to fade. Every corner reminded her of him, the man she had loved deeply and the man whose greed had destroyed them both. But Lydia was not broken. Pain had made her wiser. Loss had made her humble. Every night she sat by her window with a candle lit for her grandmother and her late husband, whispering prayers for their souls. She no longer feared the shadows because she understood them now. They were not curses. They were lessons. One morning, Lydia received a letter, the same red wax seal she had seen months before. Her hands trembled as she opened it. It was from her grandmother's lawyer again. "Dear Mrs. Kamau, after reviewing the remaining documents from your grandmother's estate, I found a note she left sealed for you, to be opened only after the inheritance was restored. Kindly visit my office at your earliest convenience." Lydia took a deep breath. Her heart pounded with both fear and curiosity. She hadn't returned to Nanyuki since Patrick's death, but something in her heart told her this was the final step. The road to Nanyuki was calmer this time. No thunder, no strange shadows. The trees along the highway swayed peacefully in the wind, and the mountains in the distance seemed to welcome her. When she arrived at the lawyer's office, the old man smiled warmly. "Mrs. Kamau," he said softly, "you've walked through fire and survived. Your grandmother would be proud." He handed her a sealed brown envelope. "She wrote this for you before she died, said it was her last lesson to you." Lydia opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter, the ink slightly faded, but the handwriting unmistakably Mama Nyokabi's. "My beloved Lydia, if you are reading this, it means the inheritance has found its rightful home. Do not weep for what was lost, for gold is never the true treasure. I knew that whoever shared your life might be tested by what I left behind. I wanted to see if love would win over greed, but even in failure there is wisdom. Patrick's soul was not cursed, my child. It was corrected. Through his fall, others will rise. Take what remains of the land and build something that brings light where darkness once lived." Lydia pressed the letter to her chest, tears rolling down her cheeks. Her grandmother had known everything. The inheritance had never been about wealth. It was about wisdom. The curse was simply a mirror, revealing what was hidden in the heart. A year later, Lydia stood proudly on the same land in Nanyuki that had once carried her grandmother's house. But now, in its place, stood a beautiful new building, a small orphanage named Mama Nyokabi's Home of Hope. The children there laughed and played every morning. Lydia taught them lessons about honesty, kindness, and patience, the same virtues her grandmother had lived by. And at the center of the orphanage's courtyard stood the ancient tree, the one that had witnessed everything. Beneath its roots, the cracked black stone and silver coin remained buried, symbols of both pain and redemption. Lydia often sat under that tree to tell stories to the children, but one story she told more than any other, the story of the man who stole his wife's inheritance. She would begin softly, her voice carrying the rhythm of an old African tale. Once upon a time, there was a man who thought wealth could buy peace. He stole what was not his, and the spirits of his ancestors taught him that some treasures cannot be taken. They must be earned. The children always listened with wide eyes, and when she reached the end, she would smile and say, "Remember, my children, the richest people are not those who have the most, but those whose hearts are clean." They would all nod, some too young to understand, but all touched by the emotion in her voice. One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, Lydia sat alone under the tree. The golden light bathed everything in warmth. She closed her eyes, listening to the rustling leaves. Then she heard it again, that gentle, familiar voice floating on the wind. "You have done well, my child." Lydia smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Mama," she whispered. "I finally understand." "The curse was never meant to destroy," the voice replied. "It was meant to reveal the truth, that love and greed cannot live in the same heart." And with that, the wind grew still. The evening birds began to sing again. Lydia looked up at the glowing horizon, a peaceful smile on her face. That night, she wrote in her diary, her final message to the world her grandmother had left behind. "Greed is a hunger that eats the soul. Love is the seed that feeds it again. If you ever inherit something, be it money, wisdom, or pain, handle it with honesty, or it will handle you with sorrow." She closed the book, blew out her candle, and whispered one last prayer for her late husband. May his spirit finally rest where greed can never reach him. Moral lesson: when greed guides your hand, your blessings become your curse. But when humility leads your heart, even loss becomes a lesson. If you enjoyed this powerful story filled with lessons of greed, love, and redemption, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who believes money is everything, because they might just learn that peace is worth more than gold.